Kerbal Space Programme is a fun game that blends astrophysics and clumsy little astronauts getting blasted off into space. And while a majority of the developers' efforts seem to have gone into making the game more of an engaging physics lesson than a narrative masterpiece that's rich with lore, there is actually some story behind the lovable green Kerbals and their spacefaring efforts, hidden from all but the most dedicated of fans. So today, we're going to be digging deep into the sealed filing cabinets of lore held within the Kerbal Space Center offices, to take a tour of the lore behind the Kerbals of Kerbal Space Programme, where we'll look at the world they inhabit, their society, their myths, and how they can survive for years in space with only a cupboard of snacks for sustenance. But first, a quick preface for this video, as whilst there is some in-game lore for Kerbal Space Programme, there's not loads. This isn't like Star Wars levels of lore. We've got to take the info the game gives us and occasionally speculate to the best of our ability what it means for the world of the Kerbals. So with that said, who actually are the Kerbals? Well, they're a race of squat little green men and women residing on the planet Kerbin, a world of grassy plains, mountain ranges, and vast blue oceans. Now, the Kerbal people are a bit odd. They're incredibly clumsy, as seen with their awkward, drunken way of walking, and their tendency to crash and explode most of their ships. They're also a bit stupid. Kerbals have in the past accidentally mistaken planets for dust or smudges on their telescope lenses, or in some cases mistaken how telescopes work altogether. There's also some evidence that Kerbals can actually die from shock when exposed to unexpected technological innovations. So you might be wondering, how did these guys become a relatively successful spacefaring civilization? Well, there's a couple of theories around possible genetic advantages the Kerbal civilization has that allow them to progress in the face of their own foolishness. One of these theories is that the Kerbal species is capable of cloning or duplicating its people somehow, and this idea is partially backed up by the in-game description for the planet Kerbin, which says, its conditions support a seemingly undepletable population of the eager green creatures. Also, barring a few exceptions, most Kerbals we encounter in the game have the same surname, Kerman. So could this inexhaustible source of eager recruits ready to serve as scientific test subjects explain the advancement of the Kerbal Space Programme? Probably, especially when you combine it with another popular theory, even believed by many of the game's own developers. This theory states that Kerbals are actually some kind of walking, talking, sentient fungus, mold, or plant-based lifeform, with their green skin containing chlorophyll, allowing them to gather sustenance from solar energy and survive entirely off the sun's solar rays. And this would explain how all of my Kerbals that get stranded in space are able to survive for years with only a small cupboard of snacks to survive off of. Both of these are good potential theories for why this foolhardy race have been able to succeed. But fundamentally, the Kerbals have become such a success thanks to their society epitomizing the idea of success through failure. So much so that, from what we can see, their entire way of life is built around the constant trying, failing, exploding, and trying again to launch themselves into space. And it's clearly working for them, as this race of lovable big-headed creatures have managed to advance to what could best be described as a mirror version of late 20th century human civilization, where technological advances such as spaceships, computers, and video games have been achieved, with an asteroid-type arcade game known as Galaxy Intruders being particularly popular among Kerbals. But whilst flying over the lush green lands of Kerbin, you may wonder, where do these guys actually live? Because apart from the odd space launch station or airfield dotted about, the planet of Kerbin is completely devoid of any cities, structures, and even infrastructure. And while yes, I know the real reason for this is that the devs probably saw no need in spending time and effort populating Kerbin with unnecessary structures, they do actually make reference to the Kerbals' dwellings in the game, with Kerbin's official description stating that where the Kerbals reside is a mystery. One explanation of the scarcity of buildings on Kerbin theorizes that Kerbal civilization may live underground, beneath the grassy plains and mountain ranges of the planet's surface, like the dwarves of Tolkien's Middle-earth, only greener and beardless, and they only venture above ground to engage in the exploration of the known universe. This is understandable, as the wider universe, or Kerbalverse if you will, is mysterious and fascinating, thanks mostly due to the large amount of fun Easter eggs added to the game. Things such as mysterious monoliths hidden on various worlds, crashed flying saucers, dead deep space krakens, mysterious broadcasts from out of space, and even a lovely Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference, all help to add an air of intrigue and suspense sense when your Kerbals are hurtling through deep space. And whilst these Easter eggs all appear to be random, there initially was a story created by a former developer that would have tied together all of the game's Easter eggs into one mysterious narrative involving an ancient civilization predating the Kerbals. This story would have had the advanced precursor civilization become lost amongst the stars when their interstellar travel experiments resulted in their entire planet being shifted out into an extremely distant orbit around the sun, where they then quickly froze and died out. In their final act, the rapidly dwindling population of survivors managed to launch numerous monoliths across the system in hopes of seeding new, intelligent life. Their plan failed, however, as instead they made the Kerbals. According to the developer who came up with this story, the alien planet would not show up in any of the game maps, as it would be too distant to be observed with a telescope, making locating it purely by chance nearly impossible. Players would be able to find transmitters, however, that transmitted orbital parameters directing players to the ruined and frozen planet. The only part of this narrative that actually featured in the game, though, was the transmitter on the planet Duna, which sent out this image depicting 4 members of the precursor civilization standing on their homeworld. Of course, this video has been a bit tongue-in-cheek, as a lot of the lore we can piece together in Kerbal Space Programme is based more on the game's limitations than any established lore. For example, the new Kerbal Space Programme game coming out next year could add cities across Kerbin, or add its own canon sources of lore, basically proving this video worthless. But it's been fun, if albeit incredibly frustrating, to make a lore video about a game with minimal lore anyway. And with Kerbal Space Programme 2 set to feature the Kerbals leaving their solar system in search of new worlds, we've got a lot to be excited for. Do you have your own personal lore for Kerbal Space Programme? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to make sure you don't miss out on the next video. Catch you next time.